is looking at you kids.
You had me at hello.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Bond.
This seems so
James Bond.
There's no place like home.
I'm gonna make him an offer down with you.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Gone with the Wind. We're here to talk about the Oscars now, here we've got a great panel. We've got Dan here. Dan, how's it going?
I'm doing good. I think it probably went as well as it could have last night. Considering I think a lot of people were probably in the same ballpark. You know, when you have multiple ballots, you can do a little bit better, a little bit worse, like I did last night. So, but I think it was a good night. I really enjoyed myself. I was at a huge party at a local art house theater, and that place was packed, and I had a blast. Did get home till like 2 in the morning, but I had to watch Last of Us after that, so I had to go to sleep after Last of Us.
And we've also got Lewis. Lewis, how's it going?
Doing great. I mean, it wasn't my greatest performance predicting, but that being said, it was my birthday weekend as well, and it was nice for the Academy to give me a nice birthday present by giving my personal favorite movie from last year Best Picture, and it overperformed and made history, so that was cool to see as well.
Oh yeah, it's just one of those things because as I found out after doing a little bit of research, like everything ever all once, like over all the award shows and guilds and stuff, it's actually one of the most awarded movie of all time now, beating out Return of the King, which is surprising in itself. But before we get on talking about the actual awards, might as well talk about how the show flowed and the actual hosting by Jimmy. I always get them mixed up, but I believe it was Kimmel. But Dan, how did you feel about the actual show itself and Jimmy's hosting?
I actually like the hosting by Jimmy Kimmel, but he kind of picked on some things that now my brother, he kind of brought up one thing that he didn't like, but I actually thought a lot of look, when you got a guy who's a comedian and who does these kind of monologues and stuff all the time, he's going to pick on you. He picks on Nicole Kidman. She finally was let out of the AMC, and of course, he's going to bring up some of the stuff from last year. He says, "Hey, if something happens, don't do anything, just like you did last year." Of course, the whole place went up, and they were laughing and stuff. There was stuff involving the Cocaine Bear. I mean, he pretended. Now Malcolm, and I'm like, he's not parachuting out of a jet, and apparently had jets flying over, and then they dropped him down from the ceiling like he got parachuted in. But so he wanted to pretend like he was flying around with Tom Cruise. So that was kind of pretty cool opening. Brings out Jenny the donkey, which he has a big back and forth with Colin Farrell over that. There was some funny bits. Now there was some stuff, like there was a political joke about editing the attack on the White House by all these insurgents and all these people a few years ago. That didn't kind of go well. I thought overall, we got you. I don't know. I don't hear anything, Malcolm.
Yeah.
That's because my mic was turned off. But Lewis, what did you think about the actual show itself, the Oscars?
I think it's definitely the best one we've had in a couple of years, especially after having back-to-back ceremonies that ended with this sort of dark cloud over them. Whether it was 2 years ago, the whole mess with them trying to set up this ending tribute to Chadwick Boseman, only for Anthony Hopkins to win, and he wasn't even there to get the award. Last year, the whole Slapgate stuff. It was nice to feel like we had just a regular Oscars. I also really liked the way that I felt like they were giving proper tribute to all 10 Best Picture nominees. They were able to make jokes about all of them and kind of reference them a lot. So I kind of felt like there was actually a celebration of the 10 nominees this year, which was cool to see. And I thought Kimmel was pretty good. Not all the jokes land, but when you're doing an over 3-hour live show, not everything's going to work. Overall, I thought it was a pretty okay show. It played it safe. I think the Academy wanted to play it safe. And I thought it was overall one of the better ones. And it also helps that I think a lot, for the most part, there were a lot of good winners. And even if maybe like a certain performance wasn't one of your favorites, the person who won was popular. So I think overall you ended up with a pretty populous and fun ceremony. And it just feels good to not end one of these and all we're talking about is some controversy that happened.
I mean, we'll get into that when we announce this, because there is a bit of a controversy that I think I've seen coming out of this, but we'll get into that when we get to that part, because it does involve one of the categories. But yeah, it's one of those ones like I enjoy watching the Oscars regardless, and I personally feel that Kimmel overdid the slap jokes a little bit. So it was a little bit there was a bit in the middle which I thought was funny. It was like, oh yeah, this show went off without a hitch. It also went off without hitch as well. But the little random segment was asking questions to the audience, and when he asked Malala that question about Chris Pine's like, she probably doesn't even know who they are. She's probably there for her own show. It's like, she's probably not really that into knowing that much about everyone else that's ever been involved in the movies. But it is what it is. And yeah, I mean, and just as a segue, because I'm going to talk about the In Memoriam segment too. I mean, I think the In Memoriam segment was actually pretty good. Like, Lenny Kravitz doing the song was a weird choice, but I think the song worked. And it's unlike I think it was last year they had the random actors sort of saying, doing the highlight bits about certain things. But I mean, as always, there was omissions, and one that I've seen a lot that I think people are doing the big red omission for, because it's for one of the main actresses from Triangle of Sadness that passed away last year. She was omitted, which I mean, I haven't seen Triangle of Sadness. I would not have known this had people hadn't been talking about it, but that to me seems like a strange one to leave out of the main telecast. Well, yes, they did what they did last year and go, oh, you go to this website, you can find out like everyone who passed on, that we just didn't have time to squish them into this little wee box here. But Dan, what do you think of the In Memoriam segment?
Yeah, there were. Look, I looked on Facebook, and I wasn't, because I'm in a big crowd of people, and I'm sharing, I'm live tweeting, and I'm looking down at my phone and I'm looking at stuff. So I wasn't really paying attention, but I did see the fact that he was crying and everybody did get emotional over the Olivia Newton-John thing. But there were some people like Leslie Jordan and Paul Sorvino and Anne H that weren't on there. And people, of course, want to make a big deal about that stuff. So, I mean, other than that, I really thought there was a genuine moment for John Travolta, who we know he had his ups and downs with the Oscars over the years, Adele Dazeem and all that kind of stuff. But he really felt like he was emotional, and that was a really good moment. And with Lenny Kravitz doing the song, it really was good. You know, you're not going to always. I don't know why they didn't get them people. Maybe some of those, like even what's his name from Saving Private Ryan, who just passed away. You know,
Yeah, I mean, with Tom Sizemore, I think it was just a case of it was real that PowerPoint was probably done like a week or two before the Oscars. Like it was too late to add people in there. I mean, they could have mentioned him at the end, but I think they do mention him on the actual website. They say, "I'll go to this see everyone."
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that, Malcolm. I have no issues there.
Yeah, but Louis, what did you think about the in memoriam segment?
You know, every year they always seem to forget somebody. I do think it's a little unforgivable that they missed the actress from Triangle of Sadness. You would think that they would have gone out of their way, especially with that movie being there, presented that they'd have her on there. And there's also a question as to, well, how do you decide who gets to be on the show and who gets to be, well, you got to go find them on the website. There's always a controversy with that every year. It's hard for me to get too worked up about it because every single year there's always going to be someone that misses. So it's kind of like at this point, it's something that you expect. It's unfortunate, but I mean, I'm not doing the show, so I can't answer to it.
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones like with some of the ones that miss, I don't know. I don't quite understand why I can't think of any reason. With Leslie Jordan, I think part of the reason he may have missed, I think people think of him more as a TV actor as opposed to a movie actor. I think that's kind of the only one that I can think of that will make sense for why that he may have missed. But for the likes, I'm as I said, I'm pretty sure they had him in the one that was listed on the website. But I mean, lots of like the big names like Anne Hayes, Paul Savino, which there was time to put them in. Them not being there is weird. It's like they're big names, but I mean, yeah, as we said, like there's always going to be people that miss out for whatever reason. And it's probably, and as I said, with only having a 2 to 3 minute sort of window where they're celebrating all of us, all the people that died, like you're not going to fit everyone into that window. Because the one thing I did notice is they didn't play a lot of clips during the in memoriam, which they have done in the past as well. But yeah, no, it's funny because I was scrolling through TikTok and they were playing the BAFTA in memoriam segment, and it got me to tears at the end because they left Robbie Coltrane to the end, but it finished with the quote from Harry saying, "It's not Hogwarts without you, hackers." Like, and that just hit me. It's like, well, if you're going to have him at the end, that's a perfect clip to end on. But I mean, that's just a weird comparison I'm bringing up here. But yeah. But moving on to the actual awards. The last thing I will say about the shows, I think and I actually missed it because I clicked off thinking, oh yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's thanked everyone, it's for done. But apparently there was this little bit at the end where he goes to this board going, Oscars without incident, 1.
And then you had the girl wrangler of Jenny the donkey wrangler there, and somebody else is doing something there. It was weird.
I think the cocaine bear was there as well. But
yeah, I think the cocaine bear was up to something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey, Malcolm, is there a link? Is there a link we could share on this? Has this been shared?
Yeah, I put the link is in the Take 3 page now. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm just going to go in the order that that Wikipedia has the order of the awards on the page. So we're going to start off with visual effects, and I always love whenever they do a cool thing to present the awards. So having Elizabeth Banks come out with Cocaine Bear is just a fun thing that they did, and which I really enjoy for visual effects. But yeah, Avatar ended up winning visual effects as we all thought. But Luis, what are your thoughts about Avatar winning best visual effects?
I think it's deserved. I mean, it was my personal pick for the best visual effects of the year. It's kind of hard to beat out the incredible work there. I know people who really didn't like the movie, and they'll talk about how great the visual effects were. And honestly, this was a lock. This really was. Excuse me. But there was a moment there where I was almost scared that they were going to say All Quiet on the Western Front, because at this point in the night, All Quiet had been overperforming. So for a split second there, I was kind of almost scared they were going to say All Quiet, because then that means that it has a shot to win picture, because it seems to be really overperforming. But they go to Avatar, and honestly, this was arguably the biggest lock of the night. Everyone and their mom seemed to know that Avatar was going to win visual effects.
Yeah, and water is wet, but yeah, like I don't really much more to say about that. But Avatar winning best visual effects, it made sense. It was pretty much a given at this point. But yeah, just like you, Lewis, like as the night went on and All Quiet was just going, racking up some awards. Then I was also saying it where I was like, well, maybe there's going to be a surprise here and that. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised. But then what are your thoughts about Avatar winning best visual effects?
Yeah, as we'll quote Emma Sasic, water is wet. Avatar is going to win visual effects. We all knew it. Everybody and their brother knew this was coming. This is one of the locks. I put 100 points on it, and I got my 100 points. Which was good because I needed those 100 points. Yeah, this is obvious.
But moving on to best film editing, and that went once, and this is another one that we all kind of predicted was going to happen, but it went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was pretty deserved, and yeah, but yeah, Everything Everyone was deserving of this, and like this is one of those ones that I was kind of worried they were going to go. This is where they're going to give it to Top Gun Maverick, but it went Everything. It started off their kind of little one that they did. But then, what are your thoughts about Everything Everywhere winning best film editing?
Yeah, you know what, Trevor and I had a little bit of a debate about this. I thought I was kind of rooting for Top Gun Maverick in this category, but when I was thinking about it, and like I said, I went to my party and I did another poll at my party. I actually checked off Everything Everywhere All at Once because I Trevor kind of made me think about this, and I think it probably went to the right movie considering all the craziness and all the wacky stuff that was involved in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I probably should have voted for it that night when we're doing our predictions, but it would have saved some time from us bickering with each other.
But Luis, what are your thoughts about Everything Everywhere winning best film editing?
Yeah, I usually stick with the sound and editing stat. And obviously, if you had stuck with that, you would have predicted Top Gun. It helped me to predict Dune last year. It's always helped me. This year, I went against it because Everything Everywhere was sweeping. And if you look at the history of the editing category, sweeps in this category, for whatever reason, are rare. So it kind of popped up at me that it was sweeping. It was the one award it won at BAFTA. And on top of that, I do wonder if we still had two sound categories, if it would have been nominated in one of them, because it did show up at one of the sound guilds. So I was pretty I felt pretty good about predicting it, and it winning here just solidified that it was going to be a big night for Everything Everywhere. I wasn't really too surprised about it at that point.
But yeah, moving on to best costume design, and this is where it just this one somewhat came out of nowhere because Black Panther Wakanda Forever won. But yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts about Wakanda Forever winning costume?
This is the one I thought, we didn't have really a whole lot of back and forth when we were doing our predictions. And so I thought, Elvis, everybody was on board with Elvis winning. And then the one that everybody kind of had cast off, Ruthie Carter, because she had already won. Black Panther's not as good a movie this time around. She isn't going to win this time, And wouldn't you know it, they must have really liked Ruthie Carter or something. Or they didn't, as Lewis said before the show, maybe they didn't like Elvis as much as we thought they liked Elvis. I don't know what goes on, but Baz Luhrmann and his wife got completely shut out. And I missed this category when I redid my second or third ballots when I was at the party. I put Elvis down and I missed it.
Luis, what did you think about Black Panther Wakanda Forever winning costume design?
Yeah, this is one of the big surprises of the night for me. I mean, not shocking, but still surprising nonetheless, because I did have Black Panther at number 2 here. I thought it was going to go to Elvis. I thought it was all set up to go to Elvis. I think this loss really established my belief that, the Elvis just underperformed big time, and I think that the movie just ended up not being as loved as we thought it was. It did better at BAFTA, significantly better at BAFTA, if anything. And it does go to something that I noticed when I was looking at the anonymous ballots, which, of course, grain of salt, very small sample, but Ruthie Carter was getting votes in those ballots. And I noticed that when I did like a ranked choice of the picture race, Elvis was getting knocked out much quicker than I thought it was going to get knocked out. So I found that very interesting. Now, I will point this out. The Hollywood Reporter has every year they come out with a mathematical model by Ben Salmer. I probably butchered his last name, but he's a statistician who does some great work. And his model actually found Black Panther favored here, which I thought was really interesting, and obviously it paid off. But for me, I think Elvis losing here is out of all of them, because Elvis did seem the strongest here, if anywhere. By it losing here, I think it showed us that there was passion for Elvis, obviously, because it got nominations, it got into picture, but there was a ceiling to that passion. And I think this movie didn't end up being as popular as we thought it was going to be with the Academy.
But Black Panther Wakanda Forever winning costume design, it makes sense, because I think the costumes for the Telecans and the suits and all that of the Wakandans, I think, were done really well. But it's just one of those ones, because in the Costume Design Guild, Black Panther was beaten out by Everything Everywhere All at Once in the sci-fi fantasy one. So just looking at that, is I started thinking, maybe Black Panther probably did win. So I know early on I did think that maybe it could have, because the original Black Panther, I believe, got also run in this category.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, it's already won, so maybe they're going to go with someone else. But no, they really didn't. It was a surprise, but a pleasant surprise nonetheless. But moving on to makeup and hairstyling, and it went to the rail. This is the one that could have gone new about. Lewis, what are your thoughts about the rail winning best makeup and hairstyling?
So this was a little bit of a surprise for me. I did predict Elvis because BAFTA went with it, and it seemed like it was setting up to go with a Butler win. But it's interesting because I remember I had even written about this, that I thought Fraser could win actor even if Elvis won makeup. I really did. However, if the Whale won makeup, I thought it was really bad news for Butler. So when I saw this earlier in the night, and especially this was after Jamie Lee's win, I thought, okay, it looks like SAG is seemingly getting their way more in with these award results. I think this was again another sign that Elvis was not as popular as we thought it was. And this here, I think, just kind of is that perfect situation where they're voting for the makeup that they're linking to what they're voting for in an acting award. And I think it was the most makeup and ended up winning makeup. And it was one of the various things that ended up leading to the result we got in lead actor.
But yeah, I mean, I know what Dan's gonna say, but it's one of those ones that because I actually thought that there was a chance, like when it comes to like we'll get there when we get there, but when the Whale won Best Makeup, was like, well, my first thought was like, is it going to actually be a split between Best Actor and Best Makeup? And because I've still thought there was a possibility, because I think, as I said in the production, like, well, yes, the Whale is probably a more impressive kind of feat, and I didn't realize until when they were talking about how they did it, because I think they used like digital prosthetics and stuff, so Brendan could still act in that fat suit. I didn't realize sort of how much they kind of went into the actual makeup and that to do this. But I still thought, like, well, yeah, I get it. Like the Whale, like that, the way they did, I don't even know the name of the character, but the way they did Fraser's character in the movie was impressive. But that's kind of the only really standout makeup and hairstyling in that movie. I thought for sure they were going to go for something like Elvis, where it's not so much about the makeup and hairstyling on just the main character of Elvis, but you've also got everyone else in that period. Plus you got as the years went on, the way the different characters changed and looks and all that. So I thought that was probably more impressive, but it is what it is. The Whale won. Dan, you can say your piece.
Yeah, well, this was a contentious one on Saturday night with Trevor and I, because I had been singing the praises, and you know this, Malcolm. You know I've been singing the praises of they connect makeup and hairstyling with one of the actors. The Eyes of Tammy Faye last year. Winston Churchill, Gary Oldman a couple of years back with Darkest Hour. Charlize Theron with Monster. You know, they tie it together, and he just kept saying that how it's not going to be that way this year. It's not going to be that way because Brendan Fraser is not going to win Best Actor and all this stuff. And I said, I'm telling you right now, man, things are looking really good right now for Brendan Fraser, especially with the Critics' Choice and the SAG, and you can't correlate the Golden Globe because of what happened. And he was like, no, it's going to be Elvis. It's going to be Elvis. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so one of the few battles that I stuck by on Saturday night was I'm going with the Whale in makeup, and I'm going with Brendan Fraser in actor, and I'm going to tie those two together. And thank God I got it right, because I needed it. You know, I needed those wins in my predictions on my various. I got those right in every one of my pools I was in. And, you know, and I looked. That's what I like about the Academy Awards, though, Malcolm. They show you the stuff being done, like the makeup or the costumes or whatever, like little clips and stuff. And so they got to show you a little bit of what went on to making the makeup and hairstyling for the Whale. And it was very fascinating, you know. But yeah, I was happy about this one, Mac. You're right about that. You know, I was gonna sing this one to the rooftop because I got one right that I fought for, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those ones, like, the difference is, like, with the other years that you mentioned, like Tammy Faye and Darkest Hour, is like, I believe that it wasn't just, like, those main characters. It's why they got the award for it, because those ones had a lot of characters in those decades, which you obviously had to have great makeup and hairstyling for, as well as that. The Whale only had the main, pretty much, like, Fraser's character. All the others are just sort of standard makeup and that, like, nothing overly impressive on that scale, but it is what it is. But the last thing I will say is that the picture that they chose to show off the makeup behind the speech, it's like this whole naked giant Brendan Fraser is like. What I know about a lot of that as well was that it was still a really weird choice to show off that much of the character.
And the other thing too, Malcolm, is if there was a QR code, you could scan that QR code, and you can go behind the scenes in with interviews from a lot of people in the categories and see a little bit more in depth on how some of this stuff was done. So that was something. I mean, obviously we didn't have time. But if you recorded it, maybe you can go back in the future and go take that QR code. I don't know if that's still available or not, but that was something they offered.
I mean, I dare say that will still work, but yeah. But moving on to best cinematography, that went to All Quiet on the Western Front, which kind of started off that one. But Louis, what are your thoughts about All Quiet winning best cinematography?
I'm not surprised. It's what I predicted, and it seemed like that's the way they were going after BAFTA and such. I did think Elvis had a shot to upset, but obviously now we know in hindsight it probably didn't, considering how that movie performed. And now we know that All Quiet ended up being a bit of a technical darling as well. But yeah, I think what happened is that as soon as Top Gun was snubbed, it opened the door for a new front runner to emerge. And I think historically, war films do well in the cinematography. It's war films and black and white films. Those are the two movies that do really well in cinematography. And I think All Quiet, it was very well received technically. And I think this was the place where it got a lot of respect. And I don't think to be honest with you, thinking about the contenders, especially since the top tier contenders ended up getting snubbed, I'm not, and now that we know that Elvis underperformed, I don't think it was particularly close.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that gave me hope for cinematography is the fact that Elvis won the Cinematographer's Guild Society. So, and I mean, it's one of those ones like I don't think because I mean it's, but I think it's one of those ones like I think as Dan said on the predictions, like I lost this. Actually, I think it was either Dan or Trevor, but someone said that a lot of the cinematography Elvis was hidden behind the flashy editing and stuff as well. It's like, so I think that may have played into this category a bit as well. But I mean, All Quiet one, like I'm not too upset by it. I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, it could have been Bardo, and I know Dan will be happy about if Bardo won. But Dan, what are your thoughts about All Quiet winning best cinematography?
Yeah, no, this is, I mean, we all predicted this. This is, I'll tell you what, early on, Malcolm, when I started seeing All Quiet winning all these, I said, oh boy, I'm worried about the rest of the show after this. But once it got knocked out of sound by Top Gun, then I was like, okay, I'm calming down. I'm calming down. But we all knew it was going to win cinematography because Top Gun wasn't in there. Yeah, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. But moving on to production design, which also went to All Quiet on the Western Front. Like this is one like I've one of these days will get around to actually watching All Quiet on the Western Front, but like just from what I've seen in the short trailers and stuff, like the production design looks good. I mean, it looks like a war movie, but this is one that I thought for sure was going to be either Babylon or Elvis, because I thought for sure they're going to be giving Babylon something, but clearly I was wrong about that too. But yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts about All Quiet getting production design?
Yeah, this is one of the ones, it didn't matter how many pools I did. I was going to get this one wrong because I had Babylon, and I do have to give Trevor credit here. He kept on saying, this movie's not in Best Picture. It's a movie that has been divisive in critic circles and other circles and other guilds. I don't see this being a movie that could win, but then it swept some other guilds as well. So, like, which way do you go? And so I went with the sweep when it swept a couple other guilds, but because I thought, okay, despite the fact that a lot of people didn't like the movie as a whole, they respected the production design. They respected Justin Hurwitz as a score. So I'm gonna pick those things because those were nominated. So you say to yourself, okay, they obviously like those aspects of Babylon. So I was like, okay, Babylon, and then bam, another again. It just killed me. I was in a rut. I had lost like 3 categories in a row, or 3 out of 4 categories in a row at this point. I was like, oh no, man, I'm going in the wrong direction. But you got to give it credit to Edward Berger and the people that made that movie. They really did do a great job with a lot of those technical aspects of the movie.
But Luis, what are your thoughts about All Quiet getting production design?
I think you can make a very good argument that this was the biggest shocker of the night because this was legitimately the only one that I didn't think it was a dark horse to winning the production design here. Because I think what we all thought was that if Babylon lost, it would be Elvis, if anything. But as we now know, they did not go for Elvis as much as we thought they might, and it showed here. But at the same time, Babylon did basically get everything it needed to in the precursors, but there was that stat that it was out there that traditionally production design goes to a Best Picture nominee. And that was always something that worried me when I picked Babylon. But if I would not have guessed it would be All Quiet. In fact, over at Gold Derby, the person who did the best only missed one, and it was this category, which goes to show you how big of a surprise this was. And this was, I think, kind of the peak for All Quiet during the night, which had people a little bit worried, like, whoa, could it actually pull this off, or at least give Everything Everywhere a better fight than we thought? But yeah, I think this just goes to show you that there's a very good, strong argument that even though in looking at the results, I don't think it was close, I think there's a strong argument to make that maybe All Quiet actually ended up finishing second in picture.
Yeah. But moving on to Best Sound, I mean, this is one that, like, as predicted, like, a war movie is probably going to win Best Sound either way it was. So I'm glad Top Gun Maverick managed to pull it out. But this is one that even I thought was like that was a really close race. It could have gone either Top Gun or just be All Quiet. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Top Gun Maverick winning Best Sound?
Yeah, well, this is kind of we know this is like the makeup award for not being nominated in cinematography. This is their way of making up for that. You know, obviously, different people were involved in sound and cinematography. Claudio Miranda was a cinematographer and whatnot. But yeah, this is one. I'll tell you right now, if All Quiet had won this one, I was really gonna get worried. I was like, I needed Top Gun to win this one, you know. And then with Everything Everywhere winning editing, things started going back to normal. We weren't in as much of a multiverse, Lewis, as I thought we were in it for a second there.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about Top Gun winning Best Sound?
Yeah, I actually was pretty confident that Top Gun would win here. Now, I got a little scared early in the night when I started seeing All Quiet picking up wins. But if you remember, right before this, they did the screenplays. And when All Quiet came up short there, and we'll talk about that later, that made me feel a little bit, that's when I started to personally feel like, okay, maybe we're getting back to normal. And then when Top Gun won here, then I really started to feel like we were getting back to normal, because I always felt like this, if anything, Top Gun would win here. In fact, since the first day I saw the movie, I have been confident it will walk, even before I even predicted it would be a picture nominee. I thought it would walk away with the sound Oscar. So this was nice to see, given that I called it from day one since I saw the film. But I just don't think Top Gun was ever going to walk away with nothing at the Oscars compared to say BAFTA, because the movie was much more loved among the domestic side of the Academy than it was with the international side of the Academy, and eventually that love was going to show up somewhere, and I think it showed up here in sound.
But yeah, moving on. So find what is here. Moving on to the best original song. And that went to Natu Natu from Triple R, as I think every woman and his dog predicted. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Natu Natu winning a best original song?
Did your dog predict Natu Natu, Malcolm?
Probably. I don't understand what he's barking at half the time.
No, I just wanted to make a joke about talking to your dog. No, yeah, and you know what's funny is I was following Twitter and I was following various people, and people that didn't really know about RRR, they were just like blown away with the dance and the song and the dance fighting that they recreated this on stage. They're like, holy crap, that's the most energy of all the songs, the most just upbeat of all the songs. And they were like, yeah, this freaking song is amazing. Yeah, and Lady Gaga did her thing, and Rihanna did her thing, but it was obvious this was the best song all year long by just not just film Twitter, but just by the energy and the fact that this is in the middle of the movie. It's a fight. It's a dance fight in the middle of the movie, and it's got the main stars in it, and it had all this kinetic energy and stuff. I think everybody wanted to see Natu Natu win. And then the acceptance speech, the guy breaks out into song in the acceptance speech, which was really cool, you know? So I think we're all happy about this, except Malcolm, did you finally see RRR?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. I forgot if you had seen it, because you said for a while there you hadn't seen it. You know, I guess All Quiet's the one you haven't seen yet.
Yeah. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about Natu Natu from Triple R winning best original song?
I was getting a little worried about our chances for a little bit there leading up to the Oscars, because I was seeing all this hype of, Rihanna is surging after the Super Bowl halftime show and all this stuff. But I still went with Natu Natu. But then in the anonymous ballots, which again, as I always tell people, grain of salt, but I noticed it was winning easily in the anonymous ballots, easily by far and away. And if that didn't tell you how likely was going to win during the show, I think it was like all of these song performances got polite applauses, or I think Lady Gaga got a pretty good response, but this got a whole standing ovation, and that right there told you, I think, that it was going to win. And on top of that, a lot of people may not know this, when you go to the Academy screener that they have filled up with the members, when you go to the songs, they show the songs as they are in the movie. So you have 4 movies where all you're doing is watching credits roll, and then you have a movie where you have a whole dance and musical sequence. So that only adds on to the advantage that Natu Natu had. And I think that RRR, which I think had it gotten that international submission by India, would have been more of a player. I think it was catching on late, maybe too little, too late. But it was catching on late to a point that some people started jumping on the bandwagon, and I think this is where they went ahead and wanted to award it.
But yeah, I mean, Natu Natu was pretty easily going to win this. Like, there's so many people that's like predicting it like easily. And I say that I loved all the performances. Like, I think the one that kind of on the night, I think the actual weakest performance of the best song, as much as I hate to say it, I think it was probably "This Is Alive" from Everything Every. I think that was the weakest performed song at the Oscars. I mean, not that I'm saying it's the weakest song. I've just definitely the weakest one that was performed. Because I liked all the other performances a lot more. But the one thing I will add, because it does tie into this category, is one of the people that did lift me up before on Kugler had this ridiculous headdress on during the Oscar. I feel sorry for the people sitting behind her. It's like,
Well, you ain't gonna see nothing the whole night. If you sit behind her, it's like sitting behind a pole at Fenway Park or Wrigley Field. You ain't gonna.
If someone like that said, if someone like that sat in front of me, it's like I would have asked them politely, "Look, can you get rid of that headdress? It's like you're blocking my view."
Hope nobody important. Hope it was nobody important, Malcolm.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Somebody on Twitter said whoever is behind her must be the most patient person on earth.
either that or it was just someone that's paid to be a seat filler because they knew that was where that person's going to sit. But moving on to best original score, and it went to All Quiet on the Western Front with Volker Bertelmann. But Louise, what are your thoughts about Volker winning best original score?
Yeah, I have predicted All Quiet to win score, even though I personally would have preferred Babylon one score. The thing about Babylon is that I started to notice that the score, compared to the production design, at least the production design showed precursor strength. The score did not. I mean, the score was all over the place. And and after All Quiet won at BAFTA, and considering that it got 9 nominations, and the way this was so up in the air, I decided to go ahead with All Quiet. And now that we saw it be the tech darling that it was, it makes sense that it won here. They clearly did not like Babylon. So I think it to me it just makes more sense now, especially now that we can see the whole picture of All Quiet being the tech darling of this year. So to me, if it's not going to be Babylon, it being All Quiet makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I was considering changing at some stage. Although I've been saying that if I was going to change it, it probably would have been Everything Every, which I still would have been wrong for regardless. But it's one of those ones that that I'm kind of glad they went with a relatively sort of unknown composer, because the way I see this category is it gets your name out there if you win, and I think if you win, it means that some other producers out there might need to scores like, oh, that Volker Bertelmann just won at the Oscars. I might see if he'll do the score for this, and it'll get and I think it helps get you out there a little bit too. So I'm kind of glad they occasionally they give it to some relatively unknown person-ish. But Dan, what are your thoughts about All Quiet winning best original score?
Yeah, I actually like your point, Malcolm, because remember Hilda Gudendottir? Did anybody know who Hilda Gudendottir was before Joker? Now they do. She had 2 movies this year, Tar and Women Talking. So she's been getting work since Joker. She's probably doing Joker 2, more than likely. I wouldn't be surprised. But or Folie à Deux, as it's actually the name. But yeah, I mean, listening to the score every time All Quiet got up on stage for something, like every time it won something, I was listening to the score because it hadn't resonated with me, Malcolm, when I was watching the movie about 3 months ago or whatever. And I'm like, that score is not that bad. That's actually a decent score. And then as the mistake I made Saturday night, I kept on, putting my flag into the poll of Babylon, and I shouldn't have been doing that. And I did it at the party I was at too, because those are the two out of the 3 categories I got wrong. With the 2 I went for Babylon, and Trevor kept on saying, "Man, they ain't gonna go for Babylon. They ain't gonna go for Babylon." There, I do have to agree with him. I should have listened to him, but the score's not that bad, and I'm glad. I'm glad for this guy because now he could be a name that we could hear down the road of the next. You don't know how these people are going to end up. They could be the next John Williams, for all we know. You don't know.
Yeah,
and I do want to say that just because I did say that I would have preferred Babylon one. Yeah, Babylon was my favorite score of the year personally, but All Quiet was also in my personal 5. I really liked the All Quiet score, so I'm not angry that it won.
Yeah. But moving on to best animated short film, and I'm just going to start off by saying Pedro Pascal and Elizabeth Olsen announcing this one, which is funny, especially like Patrick was like, some even found time to fit a whole year of you know what into 22
Yeah, he did
minutes.
say it. You gotta love that. He did say it, Malcolm. We all knew what he was talking about, though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it was just really funny. But I knew there was going to be something like that when whoever they got to announce it. But anyway, they went to the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. Which was kind of the obvious winner here, but Lewis, Lewis, what are your thoughts about animated short form?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So I was a little bit conflicted because there did seem to be passion for My Year Dicks, and then I started to hear a bit of a surge for Ice Merchants there for a second. But no, I mean Apple pushed the heck out of this. I think I saw someone say that the budget for their campaign on this was even bigger than a couple of the Best Picture nominees, which blew my mind to hear that. I had someone who lives in LA told me that they literally have billboards out. This is for a short animated film, and they have billboards all over the place. So Apple went hard for this, and obviously it ended up working out for them. This is one of the shorts that I got right. I just typically when it comes to the shorts, I just go with whatever the favorite seems to be, and this seemed to be the one to beat. And none, even though it looked like there was some passion there for My Year Dicks and maybe Ice Merchants, but I think they may have split the vote, allowing this one to easily win.
But Dan, what are your thoughts about Best Animated Short Form?
Yeah, I mean, everybody and their brother knew this was going to win. I mean, this is one of the most locks of locks on the entire night. And, all the stats that Lewis said and stuff, we all, plus, you forget, this is a really great cast of voice actors that were in Idris Elba and some other people that are in there. And it's a beautiful little movie. And I heard the guy talking about it while he was giving his speech and what went into it, and you just say, "Yeah, I'm glad." Because sometimes these animated shorts just say this. I mean, I'm looking at the scroll of the movies, and some of them I didn't see, and I'm like, these don't even look that professional. But you can look at the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse, and it looks really well done, and it looks beautiful, And I mean, this is a no-brainer.
But yeah, moving on to Best Live Action Short Form, it went to An Irish Goodbye, which I kind of wish I'd changed because, as Trevor was saying on there, it's very rare that a non-English language movie wins live action short, and so I thought, I'll change it. Then I thought, well, no, because Leopard Power's got Fountains of Quran sort of attached to it as well. So it was like, I stuck to it. But, and Irish Goodbye won. But, and I loved the speech, which kind of turned into them just singing Happy Birthday to people on stage, which was just a lot of fun. It's like, I can just imagine the stories like, what did you do for your birthday? Oh yeah, I was at the Oscars. I got saying happy birthday to him. But Dan, what are your thoughts about An Irish Goodbye winning Best Live Action Short Film?
Yeah, I had actually watched it earlier in the day, and I was saying to myself, all right, I'm switching off of Stranger at the Gate in my pool that I was at the live Oscars event that I was at. I switched. I didn't switch in my ballots, my other ballots, because I was like, well, I was just passionate about Stranger at the Gate and Malala's whole campaign about giving people a chance.
Stranger at the Gate is documentary short, not live action short. Yeah.
Ooh, wait a minute. Okay, hold on, Malcolm.
Are you thinking of Leopard Power with Alfonso Cuarón?
Yeah. That's it. Leopard Power. That's what it was. Alfonso Cuarón. I switched off of that at my party, and then, but I did watch the Irish. I watched about 3 shorts earlier in the day, and one of them was The Irish Goodbye, and I was like, oh, this is going to win Best Short. This movie is fantastic. And this is why, for all the arguments that are out there, oh, they shouldn't have the shorts on there. Why did they even have the short? this is the argument why you have the shorts. It's because of these acceptance speeches in these moments at the ceremony. Remember the lady was talking, the Indian lady was talking about contraceptives in India, the one that won a couple of years ago. And these moments really help make the Academy Awards what the Academy Awards are. And you, like you said, Malcolm, the birthday, everybody in the whole place sang the guy happy birthday. That's going to be a moment that no one's ever going to forget. You know, that's going to be one of them moments. But this is definitely worthwhile win. It was really a good short.
Yeah, and also some of these people might end up going on to do like feature-length movies because they won here. Because a lot of people forget this. Like Taika Waititi's first Oscar win was for a short he directed back in early 2000. So,
and I believe Madonna as well, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yep. Also, Martin McDonagh, right? Martin McDonagh.
Yeah.
And the director Turning Red won with a short here too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, Bao, right? Did she do Bao?
Yeah.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about an Irish Goodbye winning live action short?
Yeah, this was an interesting one because I feel like it was a little bit of a sort of late surger. It kind of went from underdog to sort of favorite because at first it seemed like it was Le Pupille, or I don't know how to necessarily pronounce it right, because it had the name behind it. It had Disney push because it was on Disney Plus. But I think Irish Goodbye and that the fact that it was the only English one of the bunch kind of just ended up coming from behind. It won at BAFTA, so it already had some crossover support. So I went ahead and got on that train, and it won. And I'm happy it won because I thought it was one of the best speeches of the night.
Yeah. But moving on to documentary short subject, it went to the Elephant Whisperers, which I'm not overly surprised about it because it's a Netflix documentary short as well. So yeah, but Dan, what are your thoughts about the Elephant Whisperers documentary?
Now
short?
This is where I watched this and the Martha Mitchell Effect earlier in the day, and I was blown away by both of them. It made me completely change my mind on Stranger at the Gate, Malcolm. Both of these shorts were very well done. They're both on Netflix. And I mean, I was crying. I was sitting in my car crying, watching the Elephant Whisperers. That's how beautiful and I mean, I was just like, wow, these people are taking care of these elephants like they're their children, you know? And when there was one scene where the elephant had to go to a different trainer, a person that dealt with more adult elephants, and the baby elephant didn't want the other. They weren't even related, these two elephants, but the little elephant didn't want the little bit older elephant to leave. And that's how, and the emotions that you get out of these elephants. I didn't realize how much emotions and how smart these animals really were. And like, the one elephant would let the person feed it because it wanted the other. I mean, it was so good, Malcolm. And also the Martha Mitchell Effect, very, very good. I guess that show on Stars or wherever called Gaslit is about this woman starring Julia Roberts. So if you haven't seen that, that's probably a good idea if you want to catch up on this woman's story of Gaslit. But yeah, I backed off Stranger at the Gate on my pool at the party I was at because of this, because I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get this wrong in my other polls, but I'm not going to get it wrong tonight. I'm going with the Elephant Whisperers. So that's what I did. And I was glad it won because it's a beautiful little film.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the Elephant Whisperers winning documentary short?
This was the only short I got wrong. I should have gone with Elephant Whisperers because it was the favorite. But I had thought that there was so much hype, and Malala was behind Stranger at the Gate, so I thought that was going to push it across the finish line. But I think at the end of the day, Elephant Whisperers and the feel-good nature of it in comparison, I think just ended up winning out. And that's the thing about these shorts every year is that typically they do basically seem to always go for the favorite, but we know that every now and then you're going to get an upset, and it seems to happen more like every other year. So we start trying to figure out where's the upset going to happen, and that's where we screw ourselves up. And sometimes it's and
you
that's
got all these right.
yeah, I know, and but I decided I'm going to try to get the upset, and it ended up biting me in the butt. But I don't have very strong opinions on these, but it is what it is. Good for the Elephant Whispers.
But sticking with documentaries, but moving on to the longer form documentaries, feature films. Navalny won documentary feature. Louis, what are your thoughts about Navalny winning?
Yeah, I'm not surprised I picked this one. This is an interesting one because it seemed like it was all about all the beauty and the bloodshed, and then Fire and Love started getting up there. But then I think Navalny with the PGA winning the BAFTA win kind of surged at the end there. It was timely. It was political. There were voters who were stating that this was their way to say F Putin by voting for Navalny. And I think that ultimately that won out. Had it not been for the world events going on right now with Russia, maybe Fire and Love would have pulled it out, since that it's more of a feel-good love story. But no, I'm not surprised at all by Navalny winning. It's clearly the Academy trying to send a message about the events going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, I like, as I said, I don't know much about Navalny, but I really did like the speech that they were giving, where they were actually talking about the family and talking about how they hope that this guy's eventually released from whatever prison he's in, and all that. So I mean, I think the speech was really impactful. Whether or not like the Academy just really liked this thing, or if it was done as a message to Russia, I don't know. I'm not going to read that much into it. But it's just one of those ones it's just it was kind of sweeping everything. So yeah. Then what are your thoughts about Navalny winning?
Yeah, on the predictions on Saturday, it was all over all the beauty and the bloodshed. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. I had it in my honorable mentions, and Trevor and I were going back and forth. He says, "Yeah, I'd love to see all the beauty and the bloodshed win, but it's not going to win. It's going to be Navalny." So a couple of my ballots, I did keep all the beauty in it, but when I went to the party last night, I switched to Navalny. But I had seen this movie so long ago, and I knew what it was about. I knew the style of it, but when it started winning guilds, that's when I said I should have changed. I kind of should have jumped on the bandwagon with Navalny, because it was a very topical documentary, which was filmed in live. And as you mentioned, the speech, he gets his wife. They get the wife of Navalny and the daughter. They were both there. They're both in the film, and that really was a great moment for the audience that was there and the people watching at home, because that really shows you the difficulties of what's going on over in the Ukraine, and how this man, all he wanted to do is fight for democracy, which we all believe. I mean, most people believe in, I would hope, so yeah, I understand this should have been the one that won, even though I was really behind all the beauty and the bloodshed,
Yep. But moving on to one of the two one of the many sort of no-brainer awards that there was. Best International Feature was All Quiet on the Western Front. This is pretty much a no-brainer. it was like you don't get nominated a lot at the Oscars and miss out on international feature. There's just no way I was going to do that. I mean, it's one of those ones like Argentina in 1985 seemed to got that early surge with the Globe run, but then I think it just really dipped out once everything, all the love started going all quiet's way. But yeah, they didn't really have a very close, nothing that was really close. Not even the movie Close. But Luis, what do you think about All Quiet winning Best International Feature?
Yeah, this was a lock as soon as it got nominated for Best Picture because never has a movie that's been in the international feature race and nominated for Best Picture ever lost international feature. I did find it interesting that when they went up there to do the speech, they actually had the entire cast and group of the movie behind the director, because in the past they've just had the director go up to accept the international award. So I thought that was a kind of a nice touch, because a lot of it's obviously we've only had one international movie that's won Best Picture, so it was kind of nice to let them kind of have that movie have its moment, especially now that we know that All Quiet didn't sniff Best Picture. So I would like to see more of that in the future. For these international feature speeches, but yeah, I mean, this was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe for the most part, maybe because I don't know if the Oscars pay for it and give invites to the whole cast of the international features. So I think it's just a case of maybe they sort of go, well, if your cast comes, like, they can get on that stage with you if you want them to. I think it may have just been a case of they all managed to get the money to be able to fly to America and be able to be there to get up on that stage shifts. And I think maybe for the other years, maybe they just couldn't get the cast together, or they were just busy doing something. I don't know. But Dan, what are your thoughts about All Quiet on the Western Front?
Well, they knew that everybody who was predicting this, they knew they had a very, very, very good shot at winning this. So this is like their win for Best Picture for All Quiet in the Western Front. So everybody goes up, and it doesn't go to the director. It goes to the country. So they were all like representing Germany. And so that makes sense that they all get up on stage representing the country, because the movie represents the country. And yeah, that was kind of a good moment there. But yeah, this is absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, and just touching on that, because I think it's probably one of those ones. I think, especially if your cast is as big as All Quiet, I think, I'm not too sure if the Oscars give invites to the whole cast to sort of come to be at the Oscars.
No, this might have been because it represents the country, Malcolm, that the country paid for all these people to come.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was going with, because like as Lou said, like, it's not something you've ever said. I think this might. I'm pretty sure this is the first time you've had the cast from any international feature all on that stage. I think it's ultimately. I think it depends on the country, on if they send if they pay for all the cast to go up, and maybe some and maybe in the other years, maybe the cast of that movie was doing some other filming something else. At the time, the Oscars, so they just couldn't make it for whatever reasons. But it is what it is. But moving on to the other one that was pretty much given at this point, best animated feature went to Del Toro's Pinocchio. I mean, I saw some people on Facebook sort of still predicting like Turning Red to win and all that. Like, I didn't have a heart to go, well, look, Pinocchio's been winning everywhere. There's no way it's missing there here. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Del Toro's Pinocchio winning animated feature?
The thing is, you talk about, they didn't want this award to go last or this one. They put him up there first as the first award of the night because they knew he was going to win, and that they wanted to hear a speech from Guillermo del Toro. And he's one of the, say whatever you want about, the guy is a great articulate speaker when it comes to, and he's been fighting for the fact that animation isn't like a genre or it's film. It doesn't matter if it's stop motion animation, computer animation, or this animation. It's a form of film, and it should be championed as film, just like anything else. And he's been beating that drum all year long. And for him to get up there first was a good one. And then Emily Blunt and The Rock just introducing this whole category at the beginning there. Their banter was kind of fun. That's a reunion from them being on Jungle Cruise, so both of them looked freaking gorgeous. I mean, that suit and that dress by Emily Blunt, Jesus. But yeah, I want to see him do more animated films. I didn't realize, Malcolm, this was a 15-year process. I could not believe that.
I mean, I could stop. I mean, especially if you're doing it stop motion, it takes a lot to get right. And he probably spent a lot of that maybe designing, just drawing the pictures and taking. He's just taking his time to design how he wants these things to look.
And I'll tell you, Malcolm, maybe, and Lewis can chime in on this, maybe, I don't know. But as a film critic, we get gifts in the mail, and we got a box from Netflix. We actually got 3 boxes from Netflix, and one of them was a box for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And there is a coffee table book, Malcolm, with designs and all kinds of stuff. I mean, the book was like this thick. It was so thick. It's a hardback book. I mean, the amount of stuff that's in there is ridiculous, Malcolm. I wish you could have a chance to see it. They really went all out for the film critics to really support this movie. And I don't know if the actors and other people got anything. I just know the box that I got had all kinds of goodies in it, and maybe Lewis can say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a video somewhere because I think Manning got one in the mail because I'm pretty sure he did a video where he did the whole unboxing thing and showed everyone was in it.
Yeah,
but Louise, what are your thoughts about Del Toro's Pinocchio winning animated feature film?
Yeah, excuse me. I got the same box, and yeah, the book was really impressive with the animation and stuff. I mean, I'm not surprised. This thing's been cleaning up. It even won at Tech Guilds for the animated category. It just became the one that they gleaned on to. They were never. I mean, I think there was love and passion for Marcel and Puss in Boots, but it never got quite there to become competitive with Pinocchio. And on top of that, having Guillermo del Toro as the face of your campaign doesn't hurt too. And at one point, Netflix was even teasing that maybe they would push this as their best picture campaign. Obviously, Netflix ended up having this mess where they couldn't figure it out. That they finally, at the end, they realized, "Oh, Quiet was the one." But yeah, it was a lock, and I would not be surprised at all if they decided to do this one first because it was so obvious.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those ones like I don't know why they decided the order that these Oscars go on, because I'm always surprised they put the supporting actors really early on.
That's a good thing you mentioned, Malcolm. And we never talked about this, Malcolm. But how about 3 or 4 of the categories were together? Like they put acting categories and some categories together. I like that. That saved time,
Yeah, I think I think the Oscars knew the criticism was with the. So I think they're learning from the criticism from last year where they decided to bump some categories off. Like, well, how can we save time but still have all the categories? I don't know. We'll just bundle them up to get up.
Who else did that? Malcolm, who else did that? Didn't one of the other award shows do that?
Critics' Choice.
Critics' Choice. That's right.
Well, Critics' Choice took it to another level. They had like 2 different winners named at the same time and had them go up on stage.
That's right. That's right. You're right.
Yeah. Although in saying that, like some of the ones they bundled up didn't always make sense because I think I thought they for sure they would have just bundled all 3 short categories in with the same bunch, but I think I think at least two of the short categories were together, but then the documentary one ended up paired with documentary, I believe. So I don't think that was the case. But anyway, moving on to Best Adapted Screenplay, and that went to Women Talking for Sarah Polly. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Women Talking winning the screenplay?
Yeah, this is one that was a kind of a contentious conversation on Saturday night when Trevor and I were talking. He was trying to make a case for All Quiet winning here, and thank God it didn't win. I wanted to see Sarah Polly get up there. I wanted that movie to be represented. I wanted what that movie stands for to be represented, and I wanted. But it's a writer's movie, you know what I mean? And with All Quiet, it's more of a tech movie, I don't see that being a writer's movie as far as All Quiet on the Western Front, where you get 9 people talking in a bar, and 1 man and 8 women, and talking about women's rights and women's, the whole thing in their society, So, and I love the speech by Sarah Polly afterwards as well. I thought she really did a great job. So, yeah, I think this is one that most of us had, I would hope.
Louise, what are your thoughts about Women Talking winning adapted screenplay?
Yeah, I was very happy with this because up to this point, All Quiet was showing such strength. And had it won adapted, even though I still would have liked Everything Everywhere's chances, because at that point, it still wins screenplay director. You're probably winning picture for winning both of those. It still would have made me a little bit, maybe this thing's really, really competitive. And we did see it win at BAFTA. But Women Talking came up on top here. And when that happened, that told me All Quiet didn't have what it took to win picture. Because if it can't even beat Women Talking in screenplay, it ain't beating Everything Everywhere in picture. Ultimately, I think what happened here was that women got behind Women Talking. That movie felt like it was getting momentum at the end there. It was almost felt like it was getting discovered by some voters because it did barely sneak into the Best Picture conversation. But it didn't have that SAG Ensemble nomination, which tells me there was acting support behind them. And I think ultimately the people got behind that movie, and it helped them beat All Quiet.
But yeah, I mean, it was at this point I thought, maybe there's a chance that All Quiet is going to cause the upset here and take out Women Talking. But yeah, ultimately, Women Talking won. I'm not over surprised. I mean, it won WGA, so that I kind of predict that it was going to win here as well. But yeah, and I don't have much more to say. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know. But moving on to original screenplay, and that's kind of where it's like this is going to be everything all at once this night. While I would have loved to see the Banshees win to give it something and all that, but the script for Everything Everywhere is just great, and I'm glad it won here. Dan, what are your thoughts for Everything Everywhere winning screenplay?
Yeah, this is probably the most contentious conversation we had Saturday night on prediction because Trevor was trying to convince me not to pick Martin McDonagh and Banshees of Inisherin, and I told him, I said, it didn't matter what stat you said, I don't care. I want to pick the Banshees of Inisherin. I want Martin McDonagh to win. I was behind that film. This is my last stand as far as Banshees could win something, and I was going to stick by the Banshees of Inisherin. That being said, at my party last night, I switched to Everything Everywhere all once, and I did get this category right. And I guess, I mean, it's a writer. There's so many aspects of Everything Everywhere all at once. And so I should have guessed that they would go for the writing as well. I just thought they would spread the love a little bit more than they did. I didn't think it was going to sweep as much as it did with major categories for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the Daniels. I mean, they ended up getting up there 3 times. It kind of brings back nightmares of Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu back when with Birdman. Man, I was so upset that year because I wanted Boyhood to win 1. I wanted Richard Linklater to win 1. Malcolm, could you just give Richard Linklater 1 award? But this is. I understood as the day went on yesterday. I started thinking about it more and more, and I was like, I got to go with everything. So I did.
But moving on, Luis, what do you think of everything in the screenplay? I can't remember if I went to you yet or not.
Well, I predicted Everything Everywhere to win original screenplay. I've been predicting it ever since I started following the original screenplay race, even when it looked like Banshees was the one to beat here. The thing is that I kept noticing that when there was a major award, when Everything Everywhere won picture, it would also win screenplay. And I think that's the thing, is that people link the screenplay to the movie so much so that even if they wanted to give Banshee some love, what I heard from voters looking through the anonymous ballots was, well, it's original screenplay. What's the most original? And with how wacky and zany Everything Everywhere was, that was the most original. And another thing that hurt Banshees, I think, is that ultimately, and I hate to say this as someone, it was one of my favorite movies of last year, a movie that with each rewatch I like even more, is that I was noticing that there were some voters who just did not vibe with the film. I was kind of taken aback looking through the anonymous ballots that it wasn't Everything Everywhere that was getting like 9 and 10s from people who didn't like it. It was Banshees. A lot of people complaining that they didn't understand it. It was too depressing or whatever for them. I don't agree. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. But I think this is ultimately, they like Everything Everywhere better, more, and they were willing to give it here. It's just like last year when Belfast won, even though a lot of people would say that that wasn't necessarily the strongest screenplay, but it didn't matter because they liked that movie more. And that's what tends to happen when it comes to the Academy voting for screenplay.
Yeah, very good points, Lewis. Actually, I really like how you articulated that.
But moving on to Best Supporting Actress, Jamie Lee Curtis won Everything Everywhere, which sent the whole of Twitter into a frenzy because according to them, it's like, Andrew Bassett was the front runner. It's like, well, no, she really wasn't. Like she may have been the front runner at the early on, once after the Globes when she won that, but it's like she died off that. Like she wasn't the front runner in the Oscars. I'm so disappointed But that being said, the other thing that I am going to bring up here is there's a bit of a controversy that a lot of people are noticing that because they saw that when Jamie Lee Curtis was announced, like Angela Bassett had this very sour look on the face and didn't do the usual congratulatory clap for Jamie Lee. Is like a lot of people pointing that out. Is like, look, she probably thought she was going to win. She was probably upset. Like, not everyone has to sort of put on a smile all the time. That you don't have to focus on just because they make a reaction on there. Like, you don't have to focus on that. But
and to her credit, I did see her applaud for other winners, and she did go to the after party.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones like she's probably happy for Jamie Lee Curtis, like just because it looked like she wasn't. Like, she was just upset she didn't win. Like, I mean, you'd be upset too if you didn't win something that you thought you might have. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress?
Yeah, just a real quick to comment on Angela Bassett. I mean, look, man, I'm a sports guy. I follow sports. I've been a sports man my whole life. I was at my buddy's house for the Super Bowl. He's a huge Eagles fan. They're all Eagles fan at the Super Bowl. He was getting all upset when the Eagles were losing. Of course you're not going to be happy. And I was trying to explain why the Chiefs were winning. And he didn't care, you know. He was like, they're playing like crap. You know, I'm a sports fan, and I'm not going to be happy that the other guy wins. You know, I mean, down the road, I might be like, hey, you know, you know, and in sports, you're going to go walk across the field or the court or whatever, shake the other guy's hand. I've seen where people punch people out doing that, you know, because they're upset and whatever. So I completely understand Angela Bassett not being completely happy with losing, because you're there to win. You do the work. You're there. You've won a couple awards. It just shows that the Golden Globes aren't as reliable as people might give them credit for. We've always said Golden Globes aren't that credible. Well, in this case, it definitely wasn't credible. And what was credible is what I said Saturday night, and Trevor and I did agree on this, was the SAGs proved a lot of these categories, especially the acting categories, that acting body of 100,000 plus actors means something when it comes to these acting categories. And that's why I stuck strong to those SAGs. And it showed that the BAFTAs didn't mean squadouche, you know. But the speeches as her getting up there giving the speech, I love the speech because, you know, we all know that she's famous for Halloween. You know, 1977, she was in Halloween. That was her first one. She's been acting for almost 50 years. And the fact that she said, this is for all the horror fans and all the genre fans and all the, and this is for you, that somebody who does those types of movies can eventually get up on stage and win an Oscar. I freaking love that, Malcolm. That was one of the most empowered, best speech of the entire night. And it was early on. It was very early on. And with her and Ke Huy Quan, both of their speeches being very early on, there was a lot of emotion for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, most definitely. Louise, what are your thoughts about Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress?
Yeah, I think Angela Bassett got her hopes up too much, because I think, first of all, I think it wasn't so much her fault that she got her hopes up as she was winning a lot of these non-industry awards. She won Golden Globe, she won Critics' Choice, she won Hollywood Critics. She won a couple Critics Circle, including both of the critics groups that I voted. We both groups voted for Angela Bassett for supporting actress, but none of that crosses over with Academy votership. So when she lost BAFTA and she lost SAG, I got off the train at that point, but there were still people. She was still favored in some places, and I didn't understand it because she didn't win with any industry voters. So to me, it was a race between Curtis and Condon, not Bassett and Condon or anything like that. And I think there were so many people in her ear that I think she really got her hopes up, and that's why she had the reaction that she did. And I don't blame her. I mean, if I really thought this was going to be my moment and didn't end up being, I might have that reaction too. But that being said, I predicted Condon because I found it hard to see Everything Everywhere winning up to 3 acting awards. Because to me, if Curtis won here, I thought it was going to be really hard to see Yo lose actress. And when I saw Curtis pull this off, even though I thought it was possible, there are a lot of people acting surprised. I'm like, after the SAG voters I talked to and seen her win SAG and seen the reactions she got, even when he was doing the opening monologue, when he shouted her out, the whole place went crazy. And granted, they went crazy for like everyone and Everything Everywhere. But it just went to show you that she kind of stole the narrative from Bassett of the career legacy award. And when she won here, even though we got a little bit scared about All Quiet there because of the way they had scheduled the awards at that point, because if you notice, Everything Everywhere was favored to win seemed to be towards the end of the show. That I don't know if they did that on purpose or what, but if you think about it in hindsight, that kind of set the tone that, yes, this is going to be a huge night, an historic night for Everything Everywhere.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is like, I like, some people online I've seen, I think I pissed some people off by going like, because a lot of people going, oh, Angela Bassett should have won. Like, yeah, no, she shouldn't. Like, Angela Bassett was good in Black Panther, but
It was good.
I mean, I think Jamie Lee Curtis was better. Like, and honestly, I think if it wasn't going to be Jamie Lee Curtis, I I think it would have been Stephanie Zhu. I think it would have been one of those two. But there's like a lot of people go, "Oh, Angela Bassett was fun." It was like, Jamie Lee Curtis just career. So I pissed some people off by putting out. It's like, well, if Angela Bassett won, it would have been a career Oscar for her too. It's like,
Right.
They just did nothing after that. It's like, so
I mean, my vote would have been for Stephanie Sue personally, but I was reading to the anonymous ballots, take them for a grain of salt. What I was noticing from these people was they would say, yeah, Stephanie Sue arguably has the better performance, but we expect to see her potentially again down the line. This might be our only chance to give Jamie Lee Curtis something.
Honestly, like it's one of those ones like, and I'm definitely going to get to it when we down the line, but it's like, this is one of the, I really hope we see Jamie Lee Curtis in some more sort of meatier roles that could potentially be considered for Oscars again, because her speech was just amazing. And I didn't realize this at the time, but the fact she did what her parents couldn't, was like, as far as I realized, her parents, she even said it in her speech, like, this is for my parents. Like, they've been nominated many times at Oscars, they just never won. Like, now they've won an Oscar, which was just a fun speech. But
I think sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say real quick, I think what makes it more special for all the Everything Everywhere speeches, why it's been so emotional, is that there's no way that when they were making this movie, they thought this was going to give them the Oscar. So I think it only makes it more special that it was so unexpected that this turned into what it turned into.
Yeah, but you're moving on to Best Supporting Actor, and this is one of the ones that was pretty much that we all knew. Like, as much as we would have loved to see one of the Banshees boys get in here, but it was Ke Huy Quan winning for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, after a very lengthy break, and just coming into this movie and then winning an Oscar for it was just a really good thing. Like, and his speech was just equally amazing. It's like, my 84-year-old mother is back at home watching this, and all this, but you could tell he really this meant a lot to him, and I really hope this leads to him continuing acting from here on, because like he's got a movie coming up. So he is in another movie that's I saw when I was looking for his filmography. I know it's going to be in Loki in this season, but he's in a movie called The Electric State, which is directed by the Russos, which has Millie Bobby Brown, Stanley Tucci, and a whole bunch of people in there, which is coming out next year. So it just makes me excited to see where his career is going to go from here. But Dan, what are your thoughts on Ke Huy Quan winning supporting actor?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most obvious things in the entire night. But the thing, Malcolm, I wanted to say, there's a show coming out on Disney Plus, and it's from Destin Daniel Cretton, but it's also based on a comic book, and it stars of all people, Ke Huy Quan and Michelle Yeoh, called something Chinese.
I think it's called American Born Chinese, I want to say it is.
American Born Chinese, and they showed a clip of it last night during the Oscars, and I was like, oh, what a good time to put that on there. You're going to get some capital out of that, because that's coming up like in another month now. This show's supposed to be on Disney Plus in like another month. I didn't know anything about it, but they probably were like, we got to fast track this, get a clip together, put this on the show, because that's going to get us some publicity that Michelle Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan are both in that show. So this is
actually, I believe Stephanie Zhu's also in there too.
Yeah, it's like a reunion. Everything Everywhere All at Once crew. But I mean, his speeches all award season have been fantastic. You know what I mean? And I don't want to kind of put the cart before the horse, but when he got up there and Harrison Ford and him hugged, and Harrison Ford tried to give him the award, he's like, no, give it to that guy. That guy's the producer. I already got my award. But that embrace is everywhere, all over film Twitter, all over Facebook. And that was probably one of those moments where because this is like a reunion in a lot of ways for him. This award season with Spielberg, with Fablemans and all that, and now it's Harrison Ford, who gives away best picture, and he gets
and Fraser.
Brendan Fraser with Encino Man. So he was kind of having this whole reunion tour this award season for Ke Huy Quan, and it was really sweet to see all that, all award season long.
Oh yeah. I mean, and honestly, like it would have been. But I know that typically, like you always get like the best actress from the previous year, and the best actor from the previous year coming out to present the awards. Like it would have been a really nice if they got Adam Sandler out in place, because obviously Will Smith couldn't be there to present. But it would have been really nice if they had Adam Sandler to paired with Jessica Chastain to present the award to Brendan Fraser, because as you know, they were both in Airheads together. But I'm going to make that the transition, because I was going to go to actress first, but might as well go to actress since I've already mentioned it. But Brendan Fraser obviously got Best Actor. This is one that like I honestly thought was going to go one of two ways, because this is probably the hardest to predict, because like as we said, like even though the stats are that if it wins makeup, it's going to get Best Actor, but it's also one of those ones like stats are made to be broken sometimes as well. And it's just one of those ones like Brendan Fraser won SAG, and Austin got BAFTA. So it was either going to go, the scales was going to tip one of two ways. I mean, the other way I did think about it first, but thought that was going to be a really impossible feat for Colin Farrell. But if both Brendan and Austin managed to split, and then Colin Farrell just comes walking through the middle, like, step aside. But it didn't. Brendan Fraser won and gave a really incredible speech with a lot of whale puns and nautical sort of terminology, which was just as fun. But Louis, what are your thoughts about Brendan winning Best Actor?
This was I was very surprised by this to an extent, because I was getting bullish on Butler. That being said, it was clear Fraser had the momentum after SAG. And on top of that, one of the things that I noticed was that the late movement in the markets was towards Fraser. Now, I'm not accusing anyone of leaking any results at anyone, but typically where the market is moving towards the end seems is very predictive. So I found that very interesting that the money was moving towards Fraser at the end there going into the ceremony. But when the whale won makeup, that to me told me, okay, maybe SAG really is going to get their way after all, because like I said, I really think Fraser still could have won even if Elvis won makeup. It was hard for me to see Butler winning if Elvis couldn't win makeup, if the whale had won it instead. So at that point, I started expecting Fraser was going to pull this off. And I do wonder, not just the weakness of Elvis, now that we know in hindsight, seeing how that movie underperformed, but I wonder if what happened at SAG and the Academy was that you had these two actors in Best Picture contenders, Colin and Butler, and maybe they split the vote, and that allowed Fraser to come up the middle because he had that narrative. And on top of that, we now know Banshees and Elvis had a bit of a ceiling to their support. But while Fraser, while he wasn't a Best Picture contender, his narrative, I think, was bigger than the movie. And on top of that, he had speeches that he hit it out of the park. He was right there with Ke Huy Quan, always knocking out of the park with speeches. And I do find it interesting that Butler, whereas I think other actors would have put that race away with how much they love biopics. And I said this even with my final prediction of Butler. I thought it was a red flag potentially that he couldn't. It never felt like he could put the race away. it just never felt like he could put it away. And I don't know if that's they're thinking, well, you got to pay your dues. Maybe the voice thing was more annoying to some voters than we thought. Whatever it may be, I think at the end of the day, this ultimately ended up being a year that was dominated by narratives for the acting winners.
Yeah. And Dan, what are your thoughts about Brendan Fraser winning Best Actor?
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with a lot of what Lewis said, but you got what really kind of comes what it comes down to is you gotta say you knew it didn't matter what happened at Globes. Obviously, Austin Butler won there. In hindsight, none of the acting nominees won BAFTAs, that won Oscars. So you say to yourself, so the BAFTAs and the Globes, the two places Austin Butler did good, didn't matter. And the two places that did matter were Critics' Choice and SAGs. And those are the two places Brendan Fraser gave very empowered speeches, very emotional speeches, and people recognize that. And the largest body, the acting body, really went to bat for him. And you add in the makeup, which I've been singing the praises of makeup and actor all year long. That should have been enough to prove that Fraser was going to win. And where Trevor was like, oh, narratives don't mean anything. Yes, they do. Narratives meant everything all year long. It was all about narratives. Jamie Lee Curtis, Ke Huy Quan, Michelle Yeoh, Brendan Fraser. Narratives. They all had narratives, And so narratives did mean something. People do have a heart, and sometimes they go by their heart. But I've been on the Brendan Fraser train all year long. I've seen The Whale multiple times. I know I feel bad that you didn't have a chance to see it today, Malcolm. But he gives a great performance. Whether he's in a costume, a big fat suit, or whatever, you see the emotion through the prosthetics, and you see that. And just by his emotions on stage in these awards, you could see he really does care. And then his narrative of having some problems and getting this opportunity to come back. Like, he's talking about how he wasn't even working. He's not even working. Doesn't have any jobs right now. I'm hoping now people start offering him some jobs. Maybe they'll release Batgirl. Who knows? But I was on his train from the very beginning. Ever since I've been hearing about The Whale, and ever since I saw The Whale, I was like, Brendan Fraser's going to win Best Actor.
But but moving on to Best Actress, Cate Blanchett got her wish and didn't win Best Actress. It went to Michelle Yeoh, and which means that it was a 4 for 4 for SAG nominations as well. And Michelle Yeoh gave a very impassioned speech, and it's one of those ones like I think there was some rumors of Michelle Yeoh maybe planning retiring early because she wasn't sort of getting any meaningful roles and stuff. But then everything everywhere came along and she won. So it's definitely one of the impassioned speeches. And like, I mean, to your point, well, yes, it is a narrative and all that. But like as Trevor was saying, like, it's not always about the narrative. Well, yes, occasionally there is some times where it is the narrative that they go for, but it's not always the case. I mean, let's face it. There's probably a good chance that Michelle Yeoh got him because some people took some votes away by Cate Blanchett. Is like, well, Cate Blanchett says this whole Andre Riseborough thing, so we'll vote for other people and not. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Michelle Yeoh winning Best Actress?
Yeah, she actually had a little bit of controversy this week. She said something on her Instagram about how she, she deserved to win, and Asian actresses, this would be great for Asian actresses and all this stuff. And then she had to take all that down. So both Kate had her controversy and now Michelle had hers, but the narrative was there all year long. Once Kate got up there at the Critics' Choice and started talking about how she didn't want to win and all this stuff, then she was involved with the Andrea Riseborough thing. I think people started souring on Kate. And it doesn't, I mean, it's all subjective, but even if Kate did give the best performance, I think things started going against her once Michelle won the SAG award, and I think everybody jumped ship from Kate there, and I think we were all on board with Michelle as far as that goes, and the first Asian actress to ever win Best Actress, which is fantastic. I mean, that's an overdue stat if you ask me. 95 years of the Academy Awards, not an Asian actress hasn't won once. That's crazy. That is crazy, you know. But yeah, and I love the speech, Malcolm. I agree with you, man. These speeches were fantastic because you don't know, you might never get back up there and do this type of thing again. So you got to give it all you got on those speeches when you get up to that stage. And what has been the narrative all year? Moms, supporting moms. Talking about mothers and how none of us would be here without our mothers. And we need to realize. And what did I say before about moms? How many women playing mothers have won Academy Awards? A lot of them.
But Louis, what are your thoughts about Michelle winning Best Actress?
Yeah, there's definitely a case where the race seemed to shift with SAG. I even said at another place that even here in Central Florida, I could feel the momentum all the way up from the ground, what was going on the ground in LA. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, if you would have told me after Kate won BAFTA, well, what does Michelle need to do to get in this? Literally every single thing that happened after would have been what I told you needed to happen. Like, and it was interesting reading the anonymous ballots, which Michelle won, by the way, where there were voters there were some who would complain that they didn't like the Lydia Tarr characters, that were going to put that on Kate. There were others who said, well, Kate's already had 2 Oscars, so I'm going to go with Michelle. And then there were others that were like, look, I love everything, everyone. I want to give it everything. So I think the momentum just completely changed. The movie got hot. She had everything going for herself. And when Kate, I mean, to be honest with you, I honestly think there's a very real possibility Kate voted for Michelle. Because I don't think she really wanted this that bad. And she's very good friends with Michelle. They've treated themselves, for the most part, they've treated each other with a lot of respect throughout the campaign season. And honestly, once Jamie Lee won, I started expecting Michelle was going to win. Because, I mean, and anything, I remember I posted on Twitter that because they presented actor before actress, said if Frasier wins, then that's even stronger evidence Michelle's going to win, because at that point it's pretty obvious who's getting their way. It's SAG, not BAFTA. So it did make it a little bit anticlimactic, more than you would think, because at that point it was starting to get obvious by the time we got the actress. But yeah, and on top of that, the applause-o-meter, every single time her name got mentioned at the Oscars, the whole place went crazy. At SAG, they had a freaking chant for her. And that's when you know that's the kind of passion that you need if you want to win.
And that party I was at, just to go off of what you said, Lewis, every time everything everywhere, anything involving everything everywhere all at once was mentioned, my place went nuts. They were going crazy. Especially, like you said, Michelle Yeoh, they were really Ke Huy Quan, Brendan Fraser, they were just ranting and raving for those people. So that just tells you the narrative this year did mean something.
But anyway, moving on to Best Director, and that went to the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Louis, what are your thoughts on Daniels winning Director?
Yeah, this was pretty obvious after they won Screenplay. I mean, at this point, I think we all saw it coming that this was going to be a big night for Everything Everywhere. So, of course, they're going to get director. I even noticed in some of the anonymous ballots, people who weren't that passionate about Everything Everywhere were voting for the Daniels because they were so impressed by what they pulled off with this movie. And I think ultimately at the end, the movie that looks the most directed ended up winning. I think what ultimately Spielberg faded was that movie he directed, as much as I like it, is that it's very hard to win Best Director when you have a movie that's more intimate and personal compared to something grandiose and something you can show off. And I think that's what gave the Daniels the edge over Spielberg.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like, but yeah, like, for what the Daniels did with Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think they definitely deserved it, especially with how they managed to sort of pull everything together. Because and it's one of those ones like, more than often, if you write your own sort of movie, like, chances are you're going to probably get both screenplay and director together most of the time if you write and direct your own movies. But yeah, and I think their speech was really good too, but especially when they're sort of talking about like no one told them that they couldn't do it and all that, and how it was just that they're all supportive of them doing this. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the Daniel turning director?
Yeah, I've been on board with them in the directing category all season long, because you think about the budgets of some of these movies and you see what they're able to do with some of the budgets, and what these guys had compared to what all those other guys had as far as budgets, and what they were able to do with that $15 million that they had. They did miracles. They did absolute miracles with and stories of them, all the actors and everybody going around cleaning stuff up so they could do another scene and stuff, do another take and stuff like that. That just tells you the kind of team that was behind this and the leaders that they were as far as directors go. And I love the speech where he's talking about Scheiner's naming off all his teachers, because the teachers that he had were really influential in his life of being able to do what he wanted to do. And Kwan was talking about his family and his wife and his relatives and stuff, and how supportive they were of him. And that's why together they make such a good team together, And yeah, I mean, this is probably, I put this as one of the most obvious wins, not an absolute lock per se, but one of the most obvious wins is on the night. And with all the landslide that was going on at the end there with Michelle Yeoh and screenplay and editing, you're like, oh, here we go. Here's the Everything Everywhere All at Once landslide. You knew the Daniels were going to go along with that.
Yeah, and that just leads into Best Picture, which also went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was like, as the narrative was going tonight, like, it was becoming obvious it was going to go Everything Everywhere to Everything Everywhere. Like, if you've been writing and directing but not Best Picture, what are you doing? Like, I mean, because if you can write a good movie and direct a good movie, how does the finished product not win Best Picture? And it's one of those ones like A24 had a really, like, in general, A24 had a really good night because between Everything Everywhere and The Whale, like, that's most of the awards. Because the only other movie that got multiple awards was All Quiet on the Western Front, and with 4, it's like, for a studio to get like 9 Oscars altogether, it's just crazy. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Everything Everywhere getting Best Picture?
Yeah, I mean, look, I could have been. I was kind of stubborn in a way. I mean, it was one of my favorite, if not my favorite film of the year. I really wanted to champion the Banshees of Inisherin because it really meant a lot to me, more so to me than other people, obviously. But really, one of my favorite, if not my favorite film all year leading up to the time I saw the Banshees of Inisherin was Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I've been talking about this for months and months. It's a family drama. If you just put all the craziness aside in that movie, it's a family drama. It's about a daughter who can't get along with her mother and a mother who's having problems in her relationship with her husband, people that have businesses. They have financial difficulties, and you have the tax lady and all this stuff. It's stuff that everybody can relate to. It's such a relatable movie. It didn't matter if you're Asian, Latino, white, black, whatever. You can relate to this movie. And I think that's what it showed all award season long, that people could relate to this movie. And the fact that they made such a great movie on such a small budget, it was like the little train that could, in a lot of ways. You got these underdog directors, and you got this woman who's been acting for 40 years that nobody been giving her the credit. There's one guy who's got basically kicked out of Hollywood. You know what I mean? You got this actress she's only known for horror movies. She does this. She puts prosthetics on, wears a fat suit or whatever. And they just changed the game of what is considered an Oscar movie or a Best Picture contender. And it could be something. And I think over the years, Malcolm, with all the new additions to the Academy and the people that are voters and stuff, I don't think this could have won in 4 or 5 years ago. This probably wouldn't have won 4 or 5 years ago. But I think with all those different additions and the different minority voters and stuff like that, I think it gave this movie a much better shot at winning Best Picture in 7 Academy Awards and breaking a lot of kind of rules of the Academy. Coda broke some rules last year. Now this broke some rules this year. And it's not Warner Brothers and Paramount and Disney winning all the big awards. It's the little guy like Apple. And when it comes to movies, Apple is little. Yeah, are they a big company overall? Yes. But as a movie studio, they're little. As A24 is a little, yeah, they've won a Best Picture before, Moonlight. But this is showing that A24 is making the right moves of acquiring movies, backing these directors and backing these creative people that really have helped A24 grow as a company, And this is, I'm really happy. I was so on board with them winning Best Picture, and I'm glad to see that this is going to be a movie that we're going to have to talk about in years coming as Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not looking forward to is to start hearing the random backlash against it, like what happened to Coda and what happened to
Green Book.
Green Book is a different thing altogether, but I think Nomadland had some random backlash happen to it once it won Best Picture. But Louise, what's your thought about Everything Everywhere winning Best Picture?
It's not just that it won Best Picture, but the fact that it did it by becoming the first ever Best Picture winner to win 3 acting awards. It broke the record for the most above the line wins. Keep in mind, this is based off of 95 years of Oscar awards that it's done this. It won 7 Oscars, which is the most in the preferential ballot era, because you got to go all the way back to Slumdog, which won 8. And not to mention it pulled off the rare feat of sweeping all 4 of the main top guilds. I always thought this movie had a shot to win Picture, but I thought that if it was going to win Picture, it was going to be like one of those underdogs that kind of comes in late and all that kind of stuff, sort of like what we saw with Parasite. If you would have told me that it was going to become one of the most dominant award season films, I wouldn't have believed you, because I thought it would have had to go through the path of an underdog. But it clearly did it. It just ate up the award season. And honestly, it ate it, the whole thing up, because critics went crazy for this movie. Then the industry embraced it. The industry went crazy for it. And I think this is one of the most exciting Best Picture winners we've ever had. It's one of my personal top favorite Best Picture winners. I think it's our most mainstream Best Picture winner since arguably maybe Lord of the Rings, because I do think this is going to become not just like one of those highly respected films that shows up on the side of sound lists and filmmakers want to study, like a Moonlight or a Parasite, but one of those movies I think is going to become a household name where you don't have to be a big cinephile to know about it. Because you know they're going to show this on TV. You don't make over $100 million without casuals also come watching this movie at the theater. It's honestly the first Best Picture winner in a while that most of my casual friends and family have heard about or seen. So to me, so I think this is a great choice. It's my personal favorite movie of the year. I get you wanting to champion Banshee's Dam. That's one of my favorite movies of the year as well. But I think it just ended up being Everything Everywhere's moment, and it gives you hope, especially as someone who's a big champion for genre films myself. I think we disrespect genre films a little bit too much when it comes to award season. It's just so exciting to see a sci-fi comedy that is willing to take so many chances and connects with the youth. The young people are into this movie. They don't feel disconnected from it like they might some other Best Picture winners.
And you know what? Real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, but it was the Oscar Academy Awards were up 12% from last year. And I'm telling you right now, Lewis, I think part of that is because the young people who watched this movie and loved this movie wanted to see it win a bunch of awards. And that's part of the reason the Academy Awards ratings went up. But go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No, I mean, I think you're right, because I think a lot of people assume Top Gun and Avatar has something to do with that. And they had a little bit to do with that. But like my best friend, who he doesn't watch the Oscars live, he just asked me what happened afterward. He actually wanted to tune in because he wanted to root for Everything Everywhere. Like I'm telling you, like this feels like it's potentially like when Midnight Cowboy won. And that was like the shift from the big epics and musicals to the dramas that we saw in the 70s. Maybe that's what this movie is. And if you think about it, we've been building up to this moment because Shape of Water is pretty weird compared to other Best Picture winners, and that one. Moonlight probably wouldn't have won with the old Academy. Parasite, first ever international feature winner. So I think that we've been building up where the expansion of the Academy has expanded what can win Best Picture. And when we look at the potential contenders for next year, I think we need to be careful. We should obviously be looking at the top tier veterans, but we got to be careful that there's going to be a dark horse out there we're not. Yeah. Maybe Past Lives, maybe something else that we're not seeing coming. I mean, last year, I would have called you crazy if you told me Top Gun Maverick was going to be a Best Picture nominee. Not because I would have thought the movie was going to be bad, just because I didn't think it would get be an Oscar, nominee. I think so. From now on, for those of us who love doing this and trying to predict the Oscars and analyzing it, we need to change our perception of what can get into the picture race and what can win the picture race.
Yeah, and I think one thing is we need to get rid of the whole thing about it released too early in the year. It's got no chance because everything wasn't. That was about February, March, wasn't it?
It came out exactly a year ago, Malcolm.
Yeah, so we need to get rid of that notion. Like, it came out too early. It's not got no chance. I mean, I'm saying this now. I wouldn't be surprised if next year we see the likes of Creed 3, Scream 6, just based on how much I've heard about how people are loving those movies. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the conversation.
Bring it up real quick. Bring it up what Lewis said. Talk to Me is getting ridiculous reviews out of South by Southwest, and it's a horror movie. Now, that's what you're talking about, Lewis. Movies like Talk to Me, Past Lives. We forget Coda, Malcolm, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival a year and 2 months before it won the Academy Award. It had a 14-month run to win the Academy Award in Best Screenplay for Coda. and then obviously it took a year where Everything Everywhere was at South by Southwest, and it did the entire gambit all year long. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree as far as Creed and some of those type of movies, but I do think of movies like Past Lives that were at Sundance, Talk to Me, which is at South by Southwest. But you can't, and I know you guys are going to poo-poo on me. You cannot count out Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Oppenheimer. I'm telling you, they're going to be juggernauts.
I think they're going to be contenders too, but I will also say, like, with this kind of what I think this is the stage for is, like, say, if Barbie becomes a big thing, especially with the names involved there, that could also end up being a contender.
That's Apple, Universal, Warner Brothers. 3 big shots.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those ones like my point of just bringing up Creed 3 and Scream 6 is like they've just been released, so I'm just pointing out, like, it doesn't matter if you come early in the year, like what they did. Anything is, like, at this point, I would argue actually add more members in there. Anything is possible.
Well,
we might
Silence of the Lambs, Malcolm, came out in February. It won 5 Academy Awards: Best Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. February movie that won all those 5. But I will tell you this, Malcolm, not that I don't think he's going to get nominated for Creed or Ant-Man, but keep an eye out for Jonathan Majors for Magazine Dreams next year, because Netflix bought that. It premiered at Sundance. Everybody was raving about Jonathan Majors. And, of course, Netflix is going to set it up so it's November or December release so people could see it, and it'd be right there during all the guilds and all that stuff. So you're going to see a guy that's in 2 major movies, but he's going to get nominated for a little movie instead.
But I mean, that's not overly surprising. I mean, that does happen a lot, to be fair.
And Colin Farrell was in 4 movies this year.
Oh, yeah.
13 Lives, After Yang, Banshees of Inisherin, and The Batman. If you look at all of his movies, they all came out all through the calendar year last year. Now, Colin Farrell did.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of the point I was going to go for there. Was like, because you did bring up the point of Jonathan Majors maybe getting nominated for a small movie, even though he wasn't in a lot. I mean, that's not too unusual, because arguably, like, Banshees is not really a big movie; it's a small movie. And one of the movies Colin Farrell was in last year was a big movie, which was The Batman. So, but the point I was going to say is, I think as we add more members to the Academy, I think the more we're going to start seeing changes. I think eventually we probably will see, like, maybe an MCU movie get a lot of love at the Oscars, with the more changes. I don't think it's happening next year, but I think it's just one of those ones. I think as the changes happen, I think you're going to start seeing the tides change, and that's kind of what I'm looking at here. I mean, while I don't believe, I don't believe myself that Scream 6 is going to get enough momentum to be nominated at Oscars for anything next year. Creed 3, I think, has got a better shot. Because I think
I'll tell you, Malcolm, you bring up Scream 6. I'll tell you, there's an actress in there. Her name is Melissa Barrera. I just reviewed a movie of hers called All the World is Sleeping. She gives a Andrea Riseborough type of performance in All the World is Sleeping. Very good, raw, gritty performance, but it's coming out in March. Is that going to be something that people are going to remember come award season next year? But are they thinking, oh, Melissa Barrera, she's in Scream, we got to remember her for a different movie 10 months down the road? Or, you know what I mean? So you're right about that. These actors are doing different work in all kinds of different movies. With Angela Bassett getting in a Marvel movie, you don't know. How do we know that some of the people in the Marvels aren't going to get, like, rave reviews? Brie Larson or any of those people. You know, you don't know. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, well, that's things like, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like. Well, I get your point that they're probably going to remember most of maybe for Scream because but I think it's one of those ones like when it comes to the small movies, I think a lot of them sadly are going to be forgotten by the time we get to awards season, unless they are really good and a lot and the Academy just really attaches themselves to it. But anyway. As much as I don't want to end on a sour note, I'm going to bring this up because I meant to bring it up earlier, but then I forgot about it until I was reminded about it when we were talking about something. I can't remember what it was, but yeah. Now I will say that for my broadcast of the Oscars I was watching, when this moment happened, they actually cut out, went to an ad break for in this, But Disney did release the trailer for Little Mermaid on the stage, and I know, and I am, and we talked about this being controversy free. I think this is a big controversy that a lot of people are pointing out, because I know Bibbs is really against this idea.
So what, Malcolm? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, no, it's one of those ones like. I get it's the Disney are running in control of the Oscars and they it's on their channel, but I think there's a time and place for premiering your trailers, and I think getting people on stage to present the trailer and showing it on the Oscars, I kind of think that's a weird choice to do. It's a choice, but it's a weird one. But Dan, what are your thoughts about them presenting trailers at the Oscars?
Look, when I saw them come out there, Malcolm, I was like, why are they coming out here? And then they were like, hey, we just want to let you know in the commercial, we're going to run the trailer for Little Mermaid. I was like, oh, okay. That's something new. But think about the Super Bowl. I'm going to go back to sports, Malcolm. Think about the Super Bowl. Lewis, do you remember who had the Super Bowl? Was it on Fox, right? Yeah, it was on Fox. So Fox runs their own ads for their own commercials. They put things on the screen about stuff that's on Fox. They talk about their shows while they're on the air in the pre-show and the after show and all this stuff. And then during the commercials, they run commercials of their own shows on Fox. It's the same thing. Disney owns ABC. Disney was doing ABC was doing the Oscars. They just took a moment in their show that they have a right to do whatever they want. And they just chose to have two presenters come out there to present a commercial that was going to be the trailer for. And they also gave the audience at the Academy Awards a chance to see this first trailer for The Little Mermaid. I don't see where the problem is. I think people are just looking to bicker about something and have a problem with something. And I just don't think it's a problem, Malcolm. I think you can correlate it to the Super Bowl all day, every day of the week. And it just it's their channel. They have the right to do what they want on their broadcast. They chose to do that.
But Louis, what are your thoughts about them presenting the trailer at the Oscars?
So here's the funny thing. Apparently, the people who were in the actual Oscars did not get to see the trailer. Apparently, they instead just cut to something else. And apparently, the people in the audience were actually not happy because they thought they were going to see the trailer. They wanted to see the trailer. So for all this controversy, the people in the auditorium wanted to see the trailer. But the only people who saw the trailer was people watching on TV. I kind of understand where the people are coming from, but at the end of the day, I gotta be honest with you. I think this is much ado about nothing, because I expect this. This is ABC has it. They're gonna take advantage. They also ABC is also running their own stuff where they run commercials right before a commercial break or right before or right after at the start of a commercial break. I mean, I think the only way that I can see maybe an argument to make it fair to people is if maybe we added other studios doing the same thing. But that's going to take a conversation between ABC and the Academy, obviously, what legal things there are on that. Which I honestly think the ABC and the Academy should talk about that, because I think that could help with ratings if they hype up this idea that we're also going to premiere trailers for upcoming movies.
In the commercials. They could have done that. Any Paramount or Warner Brothers or anybody could have bought a commercial time during the Academy Awards, put their trailer in the commercials. Anybody could have done that. ABC and Disney just decided to do it this way, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I've got no problem with them doing the trailer. They could have shown the trailer through the commercial, regardless, because that's fine. I think the big issue that most people are having is the fact that people coming out on stage and going, "Hey, look, we've got this trailer coming," because, like as Lewis said, it clearly rubbed some people who were actually at the Oscars the wrong way because they thought they were going to see the trailer. So I think you didn't need to have them come out to go. Look, watch the ads. We got this trailer because once again on my broadcast they didn't show any of that because I saw all I saw on our broadcast is the Disney 100 logo come up, and then I saw two people walk out. Like I had no idea who they were at the time. I didn't see clearly who it was, but like it just sort of cut to New Zealand ads after that. But yeah, it's just a weird moment. Like, and I know one of my friends, Jordan Anderson, thinks that if they show trailers during the Oscars, it will help with ratings and all that. So I think if they did want to commit to it more, then get the studios to maybe do what they do for the Super Bowl and get the studios to maybe buy a spot and even get people to come out and actually go, look, we've got this trailer. This is the first time anyone's seeing it. Here, have a look at it, and get everyone in that auditorium to actually see it as well. Then I think it could help. I personally don't think it's necessary myself, just because the Oscars is this more prestigious type of award show. I don't think they need to do this whole shtick of showing trailers and all that. Personally, I think just save that for like the MTV Movie Awards, the one that's more younger people are going to watch. Because I mean, the fact that it was a Little Mermaid trailer as well was more of a weirder decision than anything. Was like, I don't think a lot of the Oscar people, the people in the audience, the Oscars, other than the people who are actually in the movie, really cared that much about a remake of Little Mermaid. I think if it was a movie that, I mean, maybe, I don't know. If it was a movie that that they think could do some damage at the Oscars next year, and this is the first time they're seeing any footage from that, then there'll be a different thing. But yeah, it is what it is. It happened. People are unhappy about it. But then again, people are going to find something to be unhappy about.
You got that right.
But with that being said, this is the end of the show. But Dan, where can people find you online?
You can find me at right there below my name, fromthefourthrow.com, where I am a film critic, and also disappointmentmedia.com, where I write all kinds of reviews, TV reviews, movie reviews. Also, I've been on a couple episodes of Picture This with Dylan and Chad, my buddies, and they run down the Academy Awards for a given year, and we kind of have a little bit of revisionist history. We've been doing the Godfather years, so we did 72, 74, and in April we're going to be doing 1990. So stay tuned for that. Also, Malcolm and I will be doing the Gone with the Wind Awards on, was it Monday or what? Because I
this is the same time as next week.
Yeah. So we're going to try to do it Monday if I'm even in town. I might not even be in town, Malcolm. I'll have to see about that. We're gonna be giving the Gone with the Wind Awards away next week and then we might be taking a little bit of a hiatus. All depends on what Malcolm wants to do. But Gone with the Wind will definitely be back next year. I will say that. And you can find me under my name, Dan Skipallen, on either Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, or a variation, or Letterboxd, a variation of my name, DP Skipallen, or From the Fourth Row, or whatever. Some variation of that on all the social medias.
But Lewis, where can people find you online?
MendesMovieReport.substack.com, 100% free Substack newsletter. You don't have to pay for anything. Get right straight into your email my latest movie reviews, some of my best of personal list for certain decades of movies, and of course my Oscar projections. And within a couple of weeks, I will already begin scouting for next year's Oscars because I am a psycho and I'm addicted to this stuff. I don't care if it's so early into the season. I started this season very early last year, and I had 8 of the eventual 10 Best Picture nominees in my top 50 board. So I scout the competitors, okay? That being said, also, if Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you got a Letterboxd, spend this movie RPT.
But you can find me on Tape Productions, the host of Bancom every Sunday. Next week, we're going to be doing horror movie performances that should have been nominated at the Oscars. It's going to be interesting to see who comes up there. And yeah, we'll be potentially be back next week when we announce the winners of the Gone for the Win Awards. I'll either be here with some special guests, or Dan will be here. I'm probably going to. It's probably definitely going to happen next week because I kind of said it was going to be the week after the Oscars. Whether or not Dan's here to be able to be on it as well is another thing. But I'm going to, even if he isn't, I'm going to try and find some people to be on there as well. But voting is still open. I'm going to repost the link either today or tomorrow to try and get some last minute votes in and see if there's any changes. I had a sneak look at it just before. It's looking very interesting to what as winning. But
Lewis, did I send you the bracket? Did I send you the link for the Gone with the Win Awards?
I don't think so. Oh no! Wait, yes, I voted on them. I did vote on them.
Good job, Lewis.
I had to fill different forms this week, so.
But with that, you can find me all over the place. Wherever there's tournaments, trivia, anything happening, I'm probably there doing it too. But until next week, we'll see you in the movies.